Somebody left this. Hello. Where are you from? A question that gets asked every single time we're in a social setting. But what does it really mean? Does it mean, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Or where do you identify yourself? It also labels you. So for me, I'll always be the Egyptian guy. And never, ever, ever, I'll get the accurate deadline of any given presentation, just to make sure I deliver it on time. With this, how I would answer the question. I was born in Alexandria, this little kid there, very happy, probably because I have a 500 euro bill in my pocket back in 1993. A few years later, our dad would move us to a very small town called Tours in Egypt, which is 80 kilometers away from Cairo. A few thousand people live there, but it was for a better work opportunity for him. A few years later, we move again to Cairo, bigger city, for a better job opportunity for him. But I also feel identified with Berlin. And if you don't believe me, well, here's a picture of me DJing 6 months after moving into Berlin. Became the international fake DJ of Berlin. But really, like, all those cities shape us one way or another. They create the personality who we are today. Berlin, a vibrant city that tells you, you can be you. And it contributes to your personal and professional growth. So it's a city of hope. Well, I was fortunate enough to live in some of the major cities in Europe and the US. Either to study better education, or to work at some of the largest management consulting companies and investment banks, or to start my own ventures. Well, now the reason why I'm telling you this is to build on the idea of why we go to cities. Why do we move to cities? It's not really the question of where are you from. It's why are you here that shapes you. And if I tell you that 1.5 million people move to cities every single week, can you imagine the number? It's probably why we can't find accommodation here in Berlin, right? Well, the reality is, more than 50% of the world population today live in cities. So that's 4.3 billion people. And by the year of 2050, the number is going to be 6.6 billion. Can you imagine the increase in number? This is 2.3 billion people moving to cities by the year of 2050. 50% of today's population that live in cities. So how can our current cities adapt to that? How could we build on our promise for sustainability with that increase of number? How could we find the right job opportunities for those 2.3 billion people? And moreover, where would they live? Right? Well, to answer that question, we have to first investigate, why do we move to cities? Right, so by Professor Alan Bedeir, who's the author of a great book called Order Without Design, he categorized cities as a labor market. So basically, everybody who moves to, not everyone, but like most of the people who move to cities is to find better job opportunities. And that labor market is categorized by two things: the number of jobs that you have access to, as well as the amount of transportation that you need to take to those jobs. So it's a number of jobs within an hour of transportation. And of course, how amazing our cities are today, we can't just dilute them to our opportunity for work. I mean, we love the art and culture. We just talked about music. like the parks, like all those public spaces that we spend great time in. So we can't just dilute it to this. But the core function has been the labor market. And in 1968, during the socio-cultural revolution in France, people went out in the street to say métro, boulot, dodo, which basically means commute, work, sleep. So they're going out to complain about that situation. So 10 million workers joined the students during that revolution, which obviously didn't really result in any magnificent result. However, the quest was better commute, as in like cheaper and faster. Second thing is better job opportunities, like fair pay. And the third is accommodation that is affordable. And without those three things, our cities can't function. Now, because of that, historically, cities have been shaped around the city center. So cities are the center of trade and commerce, where all the activities, the main activities happen in the center of those cities, and people would live around them. And with more companies coming to be located in the center, the price of real estate will go up. And for those cities to evolve, then you either have one of two options, either to build the city vertically, so you build the towers, or you build it horizontally, where you expand into more and more suburbs, as well as different city centers. But if work was that central drive to move to a city, what happens when this changes? So today you don't say, I'm going to work, but you would say, I have work to do, right? So you don't go to work, or not as much as before. So the way we work has changed, and work is going from linear to distributed. And companies are hiring from locally to globally, right? So a great example of this is a company called Schneider Electric. French company, more than 140,000 employees across the world. And their headquarters is still in Paris, but the chairman sits in Hong Kong, the CEO sits in Zurich, and the rest of the senior leadership team is distributed across the world. How does that change the function of a city? So here, I'm excited to talk about how that happens and also share with you like what we have developed within my company about regenerative cities. But now, if we're not locked down by our workplaces, what's stopping us from living on Mars? Well, I heard there are a few people working on getting us to Mars. But until then, we have to focus about the cities that exist today and also the new cities that will exist in the future. And here I am trying to offer a different framework called the regeneration or regenerative cities. That framework categorized by four things, right? And then for city developers, urban planners, or us working in different industries, all of them would relate to our future. So the first one is circular economy, right? So shifting away from the idea of make, use, dispose to how could we use our resources in a more circular way. The second thing is biodiversity of our green areas, so right, biodiversity of our ecosystems. And that entails like having more green spaces, not like in Mars, but like having more green spaces where we could, get out to and enjoy. The third one is sustainable infrastructure and innovation. So, and that is how do we generate energy and also how do we manage it? What do we do with our waste and how do we monitor it? And finally is the community well-being as well as the economic viability. So shifting away from build for build towards like more human-centric approach towards the community well-being. And there are two examples that I wanted to share with you today from the Middle East, as in a fast-growing population in the Middle East, and there is more and more recurring need for newer cities to be built. The first one is a very ambitious plan from Saudi Arabia, which is building the line. How many of you heard about the line? Wow. Well, What's really fascinating about the line is the idea of having a minimum footprint of a city. So that city is 34 square kilometer of size. That's 3% the size of Berlin, with an expectation to reach a 9 million population. That's double the size of Berlin. How insane is this? Probably there are technologies that will be integrated in that project that is not there yet. What's also exciting about it is the sense of zero waste, zero cars, 100% renewable energy. The project has already started in terms of construction, and it's expected to deliver first phase by 2030. The second project is the new administrative capital, which is a city among 14 other cities being built today in Egypt to accommodate an increase of population of 60% by the year 2050. That is 60 million people would live in Egypt by the year of 2050. The new administrative capital is the first smart and sustainable city to be built in Egypt. First phase is already done. There's 50,000 employees who go to work every day now. And it's expected to also host 7 million people by the year of 2050. So those are ambitious plans built on regenerative principles in terms of their sustainability and also their economical viability, with focus on their communities. Now, while we can't choose where we are from, we can still choose where to live. And by building this commitment towards regenerative cities and the principles of them, I'd like to extend this vision beyond. I hope that the world we live in, we're able to rebuild communities torn by war and conflict. Places like Gaza, Beirut, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, and beyond. And not only rebuild them, but also heal them. Thank you very much.